November 18th, 1978, in the middle of a dense jungle in South America, 909 American men, women, and children died. They died in the same place, on the same day, within hours of each other. 276 of them were children. And the most disturbing part, most of them went willingly. They were not soldiers. They were not prisoners. They were not victims of a war. They were ordinary Americans, teachers, nurses, farmers, students, grandparents. They had followed a man named Jim Jones to a jungle in South America because they believed he was a living God. And when he told them it was time to die, most of them listened. This is the story of Jonestown, the largest mass murder-suicide in modern history, and the most chilling example of what one man can do when he is given total control over human minds. To understand Jonestown, you need to understand Jim Jones. James Warren Jones was born in 1931 in rural Indiana. He grew up in poverty during the Great Depression. His father was a Ku Klux Klan member. His childhood was marked by instability, neglect, and violence. From a very young age, Jones became obsessed with two things: religion and power. As a teenager, he would preach to other children in the neighborhood. He would hold mock funerals for animals. He was described by people who knew him as intensely charismatic, but also deeply unsettling. In the 1950s, Jones founded a church in Indianapolis called the People's Temple. On the surface, it looked like a progressive Christian organization. Jones preached racial equality at a time when America was deeply segregated. He ran soup kitchens. He helped drug addicts and the homeless. He attracted followers from the poorest and most vulnerable communities, people who had been failed by society and were desperate for belonging and purpose. But behind the scenes, things were very different. Jones was a drug addict. He was consuming enormous quantities of prescription medication. He was having affairs with multiple members of his congregation, both men and women, and he was staging fake miracles. He would pretend to heal the sick. He would claim to have supernatural powers. He would have plants in the audience, fake dramatic recoveries from cancer and blindness. People believed him completely because Jim Jones understood something about human psychology that most people never learn. People do not follow logic, they follow hope, and he gave them hope in enormous quantities. By the early 1970s, the People's Temple had thousands of members across California. Politicians courted Jones for his influence. He had become one of the most powerful religious leaders in America, and he was becoming increasingly paranoid and increasingly dangerous. By the mid-1970s, journalists and former members of the People's Temple were beginning to investigate Jones. Stories of abuse were emerging. Former members described physical beatings, psychological torture, and a system of total control over every aspect of members' lives. People were not allowed to leave. Their passports were confiscated. Their money was taken. They were cut off from family members who were not in the church. Jones became convinced that the American government was out to destroy him. In 1974, he began construction on a settlement in the jungles of Guyana, a small country on the northeastern coast of South America. He called it Jonestown. He told his followers it would be a socialist paradise, a promised land away from the racism and corruption of America. Between 1977 and 1978, Jones moved over 900 members of the People's Temple to Jonestown. What they found when they arrived was not a paradise. They found a jungle compound surrounded by armed guards. They found inadequate food and medical care. They found loudspeakers that broadcast Jones's voice 24 hours a day. They found that they could not leave. Jones had created a total control environment, a place where every thought, every action, every relationship was monitored and controlled by him. And he began preparing his followers for what he called the White Night, the day they would all die together. By November 1978, relatives of Jonestown members in America were desperately worried. They had received letters from family members describing terrible conditions: abuse, starvation, imprisonment. California Congressman Leo Ryan decided to investigate personally. On November 14, 1978, Ryan flew to Guyana with a delegation of journalists and concerned relatives. Jones initially refused to allow them into Jonestown. Eventually, he agreed. When Ryan and his delegation arrived, they were greeted with a carefully staged welcome. Music, dancing, a feast. Jones wanted to show the world his paradise, but cracks immediately appeared. Members of the delegation received secret notes from Jonestown residents. The note said, "Please help us get out. We want to leave." Ryan announced that anyone who wanted to leave could come with him. Around 15 members of the People's Temple decided to go. Jones appeared calm, but the people around him were not. As Ryan's delegation drove to the local airstrip to leave, Jonestown security guards opened fire. Congressman Leo Ryan was shot dead on the airstrip. 3 journalists were killed. 1 Jonestown defector was killed. 10 others were wounded. It was the first and only time in American history that a sitting member of Congress was assassinated. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones knew it was over. He gathered his followers together, and he told them it was time. What happened in Jonestown on the night of November 18, 1978, is one of the most disturbing events in modern human history. Jones gathered all 909 members of his community into the central pavilion. A large metal vat was brought out. It contained grape-flavored drink mixed with cyanide, sedatives, and tranquilizers. Jones told his followers that the time had come for what he called a revolutionary act. He told them that by dying together, they would show the world the power of their movement. He told them they were not committing suicide. They were crossing over. Nurses began administering the poison with syringes to the youngest children first. Some members protested. Recordings made that night capture the voices of people begging Jones to reconsider, asking him to let the children live. Jones told them there was no other way. The adults who resisted were injected by force. Those who tried to run were stopped by armed guards who surrounded the perimeter. One by one, and then in groups, people drank from the vat or were injected. The poison took between 5 and 20 minutes to kill. Families held each other as they died. Mothers held their children. People who had given up everything, their homes, their savings, their families, their freedom, gave the last thing they had left, their lives. Jim Jones himself died of a gunshot wound to the head. Whether it was self-inflicted or fired by someone else was never conclusively determined. By the time the Guyanese army arrived the next morning, 909 people were dead. The jungle was silent. The question that has haunted researchers and psychologists for over 40 years is always the same. How did this happen? How did intelligent, ordinary people end up following a man into a jungle and dying for him? The answer is not simple, and it is more disturbing than you might think. Because the truth is, Jim Jones did not target stupid people. He targeted lonely people, desperate people, people who had been failed by every other system in their lives. He offered them family, community, purpose, belonging. And then, slowly, over years, he replaced those things with fear. Psychologists call this process coercive control. It works the same way in cults as it does in abusive relationships. First, you are loved. Then you are isolated. Then you are made dependent. Then you are made afraid. By the time people in Jonestown realized the full extent of what Jones was, they had no money, no passports, no family connections, no way out. They were alone in a jungle thousands of miles from home, completely dependent on the man who was slowly destroying them. The Jonestown Massacre did not happen because people were weak. It happened because one man was extraordinarily skilled at exploiting the most fundamental human need, the need to belong. And that is the most terrifying lesson of all, because that need exists in every single one of us. The aftermath of Jonestown shook America to its core. The U.S. military was deployed to Guyana to recover the bodies. Because so many of the dead had no surviving family members, or whose family members were also dead, 409 victims were buried in a mass grave at Evergreen Cemetery in Oakland, California. Their names are on a memorial wall. Many of them were never individually identified. The survivors, those who had left before the massacre or escaped that night, carried the trauma for the rest of their lives. Many were shunned by society. People who had lost everything were then blamed for what happened. The phrase drinking the Kool-Aid, meaning blindly following something without question, entered the English language because of Jonestown. It is used casually today by people who have no idea it refers to 909 real human beings who died in a jungle, 276 of them children. Jim Jones destroyed the People's Temple, but he also destroyed something else. The comfortable idea that mass murder requires monsters. Sometimes it just requires one very charismatic man and enough people who need to believe in something. 909 people, 276 of them children. They were not weak. They were not stupid. They were not different from you or me. They were people who needed to belong somewhere, and they found the wrong place. Remember their names, not his. Subscribe to Grave Signal. We investigate the cases that changed the world. The next case is one that will make you look at someone you trust very differently. See you then.